I didn't expect this weekend to stir anything in me. I thought it'd just be trees, silence, and awkward pauses, the usual script between me and Martin. But the forest had a way of stripping things down to their core. No distractions, no walls, just me, him, and the space in between us that's always felt too quiet. It was his idea, of course. A little digital detox, he'd said, standing at the kitchen door with that familiar travel mug in hand. Half steam, half smile. I didn't fight it. I just nodded and went back to scrolling my phone, pretending not to notice the hopeful look he gave me, like he was waiting for something I didn't know how to give him. He isn't my real dad. Never was. He married my mom 5 years ago, and she passed not long after. Cancer, swift and cruel. And yet, somehow, he stayed. Even when he didn't have to. Even when I made it hard. Especially then. I'm 20 now, old enough to be on my own, and yet here I am, riding in the passenger seat of his ancient Land Rover, a packed rucksack at my feet and a cold can of Monster in my hand, pretending not to feel watched. Not in a creepy way, just studied. Like Martin was trying to read something in me I didn't know how to put into words. The woods were about 3 hours from our flat in Kent. Far enough that the reception dropped halfway there. Far enough that the only thing left between us was the sound of tires on dirt and the occasional click of the heater. I caught him glancing at me more than once. I ignored it. "You used to love these trips," he said as we pulled up to the clearing. His voice was soft, careful. "When your mum took you camping." "I was a kid then," I muttered, grabbing my bag, trying not to let the twist in my chest show. He didn't reply, just smiled faintly and got out, boots crunching the dry twigs as he moved around to unload the gear. I followed, not because I wanted to, but because a part of me was tired of holding everything in. The clearing was beautiful. A ring of birch trees hugged the space like arms around a secret. A small fire pit lay in the center, charred stones still warm from past memories. The sun filtered through the canopy in golden shafts, turning dust into glitter. I breathed in, and for the first time in ages, my shoulders loosened. Martin moved with quiet ease, unrolling sleeping mats, setting up the tent. I watched him from the corner of my eye, the way his shirt clung to his back, damp with sweat, the curve of his jaw under the shadow of late afternoon sun. It hit me then, unexpectedly and unwelcome. I'd been watching him a lot lately. Not in a way I wanted to admit even to myself. Just watching. And feeling. He caught me looking and smiled, one of those tired, gentle smiles that made something behind my ribs ache. "You all right?" he asked. "Yeah," I said too quickly. Then, softer, "Yeah. Just tired. Long week." Something like that. We sat in silence after that. The kind that wasn't empty but buzzing with unsaid things. He handed me a bottle of water, our fingers brushing. Too long. Too soft. I pulled mine back like it burned. "I'm glad you came," he said quietly. I nodded, not trusting my voice. There was something about being away from everything, away from the noise and the people and the expectations. Out here, there were no rules about who we were supposed to be. Just two people connected by something more complicated than blood. And lately, my feelings for him had stopped fitting neatly into the word stepfather. They'd started blurring, melting into something I didn't know how to name. I watched the sun dip lower, casting shadows between the trees. The air was cooler now. Still, I could feel the shift coming. In the way he glanced at me like he wanted to say something. In the way my heart stuttered every time he did. Something was going to change. I could feel it. And I wasn't sure I was ready. But I wanted it. More than I wanted to admit. Martin wasn't like other men my mum dated. He was quiet but steady. Never tried too hard to win me over. Never forced himself into the space between me and my grief. He was just there. Always there. Making sure there was food in the fridge. Fixing things around the flat. Picking me up from sixth form when I couldn't be bothered to wait for the bus. At first, I took it as guilt. Like he was doing penance for surviving her. But over time, his presence stopped feeling like an obligation. It became something I looked for. A kind of comfort I didn't want to admit I needed. Back at the campsite, we worked side by side, setting up as the light began to dim behind the trees. Martin was annoyingly good at this kind of thing. Efficient, capable, all measured movements and focused silence. I tried to help, but he kept laughing gently under his breath every time I messed something up. "No, not that loop. You'll collapse the whole thing." I thought I had it. Yeah, well, thinking and doing aren't always friends. I rolled my eyes, fighting a smile. You could just say thank you for trying. He smirked. Thank you, then, for trying very hard to ruin our only shelter for the weekend. I threw a pine cone at him. He caught it midair, still smirking. It was the sort of moment we'd had more often lately, light, teasing, almost flirty in a way that made my stomach knot if I thought too much about it, which I was starting to do far too often. By the time the tent was up and the sky had faded to a dusky purple, Martin had unpacked the cooking gear and was setting up a small portable stove. I sat nearby, cross-legged, picking absently at the hem of my hoodie. "Remember that trip to Cornwall?" he asked, glancing at me while lighting the stove. I nodded. "The one where the car broke down halfway there?" He chuckled. "And we ended up staying in that dodgy little roadside inn, with the wallpaper peeling off in strips." "Yeah. How could I forget? You were what, 16? Wouldn't stop complaining the entire time. I had exams the next week, and a phone glued to your hand. You took it away. I stand by that decision," he said, handing me a mug of something warm. "Worst tantrum I've ever seen." I took a sip. "I wasn't that bad. You were dramatic. You fake-limped for a full day because I made you go on that cliff walk." I laughed, unable to help myself. "All right, that was a bit much." Moments like this were dangerous. They blurred things, reminded me how close we'd become without even realizing it. Somewhere between Cornwall and Christmases, between burnt toast and late-night film marathons, he'd stopped being just Mum's husband. He'd become something else. We ate in comfortable quiet, the forest humming around us. Crickets, the rustle of leaves, the soft snap of the fire. My fingers brushed his when I handed him the pot to rinse. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. Then came the complication. "So," he said, unrolling the sleeping bags, "I thought we packed too." "We did." I frowned. "I packed both this morning." He raised an eyebrow, holding up a single sleeping bag. "Then I guess the forest swallowed one." I froze. "Are you kidding?" He checked the car again just to be sure. Nothing. Not even a spare blanket. "Brilliant," I muttered. "Guess I'm sleeping in the car." "It's colder in there than out here," he said, zipping the sleeping bag open. "We'll share. It's wide enough. Just don't kick me in your sleep." I stared at it. Shared sleeping bag. One zip, one narrow cocoon of fabric. My skin prickled, not from the cold. He must have noticed my hesitation because his voice dropped a little. "We don't have to if you're uncomfortable." "No, it's fine," I said too fast. Then softer, "It's fine." Later, we changed inside the tent, backs turned like we always did on trips like these. I tried not to look. I really did. But he pulled his jumper over his head, revealing the taut lines of his back, and my gaze lingered a little too long. My breath hitched and I turned away, cheeks burning. Inside the sleeping bag, it was warm. Too warm. Too close. I could feel the heat of his body along my side, the rise and fall of his breath just inches from mine. His arm brushed mine as he shifted. I didn't move. "Comfortable?" he asked quietly. "Yeah," I murmured. "You?" "I'm good." Silence. But not the awkward kind. The heavy kind filled with something we weren't saying. I didn't know what to do with the part of me that wanted to turn toward him, press my face into his shoulder, breathe him in like I'd been starving. I didn't know when I'd started wanting things I couldn't have. Maybe I'd always wanted them and only now out here, with nothing between us, was it starting to show. His hand moved in the dark, settling near mine. Not quite touching, but close enough to feel. My heart thudded against my ribs. I didn't sleep for a long time. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to miss a single second of being near him. The morning light slipped through the tent seams, pale and gold, dusting everything in a soft glow. I woke up first, curled awkwardly on my side, my shoulder pressed against Martin's chest. For a moment I didn't move. I just listened, to the hush of the forest, to the faint birdsong, and to the steady rhythm of his breathing warm and deep beside me. Then it hit me how close we were, how I hadn't noticed when, sometime during the night, I'd leaned into him, or when his arm had slung itself loosely around my waist like it belonged there. My breath caught. I eased myself back, careful not to wake him, but the movement made him stir. "Morning," he mumbled, voice low and groggy. "Morning," I replied quickly, heart thudding as I rolled away, pretending to stretch. His eyes stayed on me for a second too long. "Sleep, all right?" "Yeah," I said, avoiding his gaze. "You?" He nodded, sitting up and running a hand through his hair. The sight of him, rumpled, half awake, shirt clinging to his chest, sent a confusing heat straight through me. I busied myself with the backpack, pretending to search for something just to keep my hands moving. That morning, we made a simple breakfast, eggs on toast over the small fire. Conversation was light, easy, but under the surface, something had shifted. I felt it in the way he looked at me sometimes, like he was trying to figure something out, and I felt it in myself too, like I was walking a tightrope I didn't remember climbing onto. The plan for the day was a hike, just a short one, up through the ridge trail that overlooked the lake. Martin loved it. He talked about it on the drive, eyes lighting up like a kid when he described the view from the top. We packed water, snacks, a small first aid kit. Martin never went anywhere unprepared. The weather was perfect. Clear sky, crisp air, and just enough wind to keep the sun from feeling too harsh. The trail was steeper than I expected, narrow in places, littered with twisted roots and loose stones. We walked in silence at first, the rhythm of our boots sinking as we climbed higher. But about halfway up, the trail narrowed to a sharp ledge hugging the side of a hill. A small rock slide had taken part of it down, leaving just a slim path barely wide enough for one person. Below, the drop was steep, nothing fatal, but enough to break something if we slipped. Martin paused, frowning. Didn't realize it had eroded this much. I looked at him, then at the ledge. "You still want to go across?" He nodded. "We've come this far. Just take it slow." He went first, moving with careful precision, arms slightly out for balance. When he reached the other side, he turned and held out his hand. "Come on. Just don't look down." I hesitated. Heights weren't exactly my thing. "Hey," he said gently. "I've got you." That shouldn't have mattered. But it did. Because his voice had that tone again, the one he used when I was 16 and quietly breaking under the weight of losing her. Steady. Safe. I took a breath and stepped onto the ledge. One foot after the other. The ground beneath me shifted, crumbled slightly, and I froze. "Don't stop," he said. "Reach for me." My hands were shaking. "This is stupid." "Yeah," he said softly. "But we're doing it anyway." I looked up and there he was. Arms open. Waiting. I reached. He grabbed my forearm and pulled, steady and strong, until I stumbled forward and crashed right into him. It wasn't graceful. I landed chest first against him, palms flat against his torso to keep from falling. And for a long second, neither of us moved. His hands were on my waist. Mine stayed on his chest. And I could feel everything. His heartbeat, the warmth of his skin through the fabric, the way his breath hitched slightly when I didn't immediately pull away. "Sorry," I muttered, stepping back too quickly. "No need to apologize," he said, eyes searching mine. "You did fine." We kept walking, but something in that moment clung to me like sap, sticky and impossible to ignore. By the time we reached the top of the ridge, my heart had only just begun to settle. The view was incredible. Forest stretching out in every direction, the lake below glinting like glass. We sat side by side on a wide rock, catching our breath. Martin handed me a bottle of water. Our fingers brushed again. It wasn't accidental this time. "You've changed," he said after a moment. I turned to him. "What do you mean?" "Just you've grown up. You're more sure of yourself. Quieter, maybe, but it suits you." The compliment hit deeper than it should have. I felt seen. And more than that, I felt wanted. Or maybe that was just me wanting too much. "You used to push everyone away," he added, softer this time. "Even me. I didn't know what else to do." He nodded slowly. "I know. I stuck around anyway. That did something to me. Cracked something open. Because I didn't want to keep pretending that what I felt around him was just admiration. Or leftover grief. Or misplaced gratitude. But I also didn't want to ruin it. So I said nothing. That night, the closeness continued. Unspoken, but thick between us. We ate quietly, laughed a little, avoided eye contact for too long, then stared for too long when we forgot to look away. Inside the tent, we lay shoulder to shoulder again, inside that one stupid sleeping bag. He shifted slightly, his leg brushing mine. "Cold?" he asked, voice low. A bit, I lied. Truth was, I was burning. Without thinking, I rolled slightly, just enough to rest my back against his chest. Testing something. Wanting something. He didn't move away. He breathed in, slow, shaky, and his hand settled on my hip. Not possessive. Not demanding. Just there. I closed my eyes. My thoughts were a mess. Half shame. Half longing. All wrapped in confusion. I wanted to ask him what this was. I wanted to ask if he felt it too. But I didn't ask. Because part of me already knew the answer. And part of me was still afraid to hear it out loud. It was well past midnight when I opened my eyes again. The forest outside was hushed and black, lit only faintly by the glow of the moon through the tense mesh. I hadn't really been asleep, just hovering in that restless space where thoughts run louder than dreams. Martin was still beside me, his breath slow, measured, like he was asleep, but then I felt it. His hand. It hadn't been there before. Resting lightly over my ribs now. Still, unmoving, but not by accident. I could feel the weight of it like a question pressed against my skin. And suddenly, the silence was unbearable. You're awake, aren't you? I said, my voice just above a whisper. A beat. Then his breath caught slightly. Yeah. I thought so. He shifted behind me, just enough for the sleeping bag to rustle. Couldn't sleep. Me neither. Another pause. That same pressure in my chest. Tight. Nervous. I stared at the canvas ceiling, then at nothing, wishing I could see his face. He was still touching me. Just that quiet hand over my side like it had always belonged there. I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. Instead, I turned slowly to face him. The small space between us shrank instantly. Our noses weren't touching, but they could have been. His eyes were wide open now, dark and searching mine in the soft light. I swallowed hard. Martin, I started, then lost the words. His brow creased. Yeah? There was no smooth way to say it. No clever line. Just truth, waiting to make a mess of everything. But keeping it in, pretending, was starting to hurt more than the risk of being wrong. So I took a breath, let it out slow, and then said the one thing I'd never dared say out loud. I don't know when it started, but I feel something for you. And it's not just because you've been there for me or because you looked after me. It's more than that. His expression didn't change, not right away. And the silence that followed was enough to make my heart trip over itself. I know it's messed up, I rushed on. I know how it must sound, and maybe you don't feel the same, or maybe I've completely ruined everything just by saying this, but I had to. Hey! His voice cut in, low but steady. His hand moved up, gently to my face. His thumb brushed under my cheekbone. Warm, trembling slightly. You didn't ruin anything. I blinked. You're not surprised? He exhaled. I think I've known for a while. I just didn't know if it was real or if I was imagining it. You weren't, I whispered. I wanted to be sure, he said, softer now. I didn't want to project anything onto you. You've been through a lot and I couldn't trust myself to know if what I felt was coming from the right place. And now, his eyes held mine. Now I think I can't stop thinking about you. My chest tightened so suddenly it almost hurt. Then why didn't you say anything? Because I'm supposed to be the adult, he said with a dry, breathless laugh. The responsible one. And I didn't want to hurt you, or complicate everything. You haven't. You're not. I reached up, fingers curling slightly around his wrist. I've been thinking about you too. Something passed between us then. Fragile, enormous. Like the truth had taken up all the space in the tent and we were both just trying to breathe inside it. I think I wanted you to kiss me, I admitted. Martin's eyes softened. You think. I managed the smallest smile. I know. He hesitated. And I could feel the weight of it, the hesitation, the decision, the risk. He was still Martin, still the man who'd always tried to protect me even from myself. But now I saw it in his eyes. That same pull I felt mirrored in him. Deep. Careful. Needing. Are you sure? He asked. Yes. That was all it took. He leaned in slowly like he was giving me a chance to pull away. I didn't. I tilted my face toward his, eyes fluttering closed. And when our lips met, it wasn't like the books or the movies. It wasn't fireworks or heat waves or some explosion. It was quiet. Almost still. His lips moved gently against mine like he was memorizing the shape of me. Testing the way we fit together. My hand slid to his neck, fingers threading into his hair, and he let out the softest sound like he'd been holding his breath for years. When we finally pulled apart, he didn't speak. He just rested his forehead against mine, breath mingling in the space between us. My heart was racing. So was his. "Can I ask you something?" I murmured. "Anything. Does this scare you?" He nodded slightly. "More than anything. But you want it anyway?" His answer was a kiss to my temple. Then one to my jaw. Then back to my lips, longer this time, deeper. I felt myself melt into him, like everything I'd been holding back finally had a place to land. When we broke apart again, his hand was cupping the side of my face. "I don't know what this means yet," he said quietly. "I don't know how we make this work or what happens when we go home, but I know I want it. I want you." I nodded, feeling tears sting my eyes for no reason I could explain. "That's enough. For now, that's enough." We lay back down, curled toward each other. His hand found mine in the dark and didn't let go. I didn't sleep much after that. But it didn't matter. Because for the first time in a long, long while, I didn't feel alone. And for the first time ever, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I could be loved in return. The morning light slipped in through the tent's flimsy fabric, casting everything in a muted golden hue. I was already awake when Martin stirred beside me, his arms still around my waist, his chest rising and falling against my back in a steady rhythm that somehow felt like home now. Neither of us spoke at first. We didn't need to. That quiet closeness between us no longer felt like an accident or a question, it just was. Eventually, his fingers moved, tracing an absent line across my forearm. "So," he said, voice husky from sleep, "we kissed." I let out a small, nervous laugh. "We did." There was a pause, then, "And you're not freaking out?" "I am," I said, rolling onto my back to look at him. "But in a good way. Like, I've been waiting to freak out like this." He grinned, eyes crinkling the way they always did when he was trying not to laugh at something. "You're impossible. You're the one who kissed me. You basically begged me to." "I said I wanted you to. That's different." "Oh, of course," he murmured, leaning in and pressing a lazy kiss to the corner of my mouth. "Totally different." I swatted him lightly on the shoulder, and he caught my hand, lacing our fingers together. For a few moments, we just lay there, quiet, intertwined, the kind of silence that feels like trust. Then he asked, more carefully, "You okay with everything?" I nodded. "I mean, yeah. It's weird. But it feels right. I'm not overthinking it for once. You usually overthink everything." "I know. It's like a sport for me." He smiled at that, but I could see the concern still lingering in his eyes. "I don't want this to be something we pretend didn't happen once we're back home," I said, softer now. "Neither do I." I watched him carefully. "But it's not going to be easy, is it?" He sighed, brushing his thumb along my knuckles. "Probably not. People won't understand. They'll make assumptions." He nodded. "And maybe they'll be wrong. Maybe they won't. But what matters is what we know. What we choose to do with this." I took a deep breath. "So, what do we do?" "We start with this," he said, tugging me closer. "With mornings like this. With honesty." "You mean waking up in the same sleeping bag, half tangled and covered in mosquito bites?" "Exactly," he smirked. "It's the perfect foundation for a healthy relationship." I laughed, burying my face against his chest. He felt warm, solid. "Real. You're such a nerd. And you're the one falling for me," he murmured into my hair. My heart skipped. "Falling?" He stilled slightly. "I mean," he said slowly, "you did say you had feelings. Unless that was just, heat of the moment stuff." I pulled back to look at him. "It wasn't. I meant it." He nodded, a faint flush rising to his cheeks. "Good." I tilted my head. "And you? What do you feel?" He didn't answer straight away. His eyes searched mine, serious now. "I feel like I've been walking on a line with you for months. Wanting to protect you, care for you, and then one day realizing it wasn't just that." My throat tightened. "I think I started falling before I even noticed it was happening," he said. The breath left my lungs. "But I was scared," he added. "Because it's not simple. Because of everything we're to each other." "But it is simple," I said, voice trembling slightly. "It's us." He smiled softly. "Yeah, it's us." There was a kind of quiet in that moment I hadn't known before. The kind that comes after the storm, not dramatic, not cinematic. Just safe. "I don't want to rush anything," he said, voice low and steady. "We can figure it out as we go. You tell me when to slow down or stop. And I'll do the same." I nodded. "That sounds like something real." "It is real." He kissed me again, no urgency this time, no question. Just the kind of kiss that says we've got time. When we finally crawled out of the tent into the warm light of morning, everything looked different. The trees weren't just trees, they were witnesses. The dirt on our boots, the path we'd walked yesterday, it all meant something now. Like the woods themselves had been waiting for us to stop lying to ourselves. He handed me a cup of too strong instant coffee and bumped his shoulder against mine. "Still want to finish the trail today?" he asked. I took a sip, grimaced, then smiled. "Only if you promise not to let me fall on my arse again." "No promises," he teased, "but I'll catch you if you do." And I believed him. We hiked for hours that day, winding through the trees in a comfortable rhythm. Every now and then, Martin would glance back to check if I was keeping up, smirking when I wasn't. He'd offer a hand without asking, steady and warm, and I'd pretend not to notice the way our fingers lingered after. There wasn't much talking. We didn't need it. After everything we'd said the night before, the silence now felt earned, like something sacred between us, not avoidance. Just being. Just us. At the summit, the view opened wide, miles of green stretching into soft golden haze. The sky blushed with late afternoon and the wind tugged at my hoodie as I stepped up beside him. "It's beautiful," I whispered. He nodded, squinting into the breeze. "You always look at views like they're secrets only you can hear." I glanced at him, smiling. "Maybe I'm just trying to memorize things. Like this. Exactly like this." He didn't speak for a second. Then he pulled something from the side pocket of his backpack. A small metal carabiner, the kind we used for gear, but this one had a loop of soft brown string tied through it and a tiny scratched-in marking. A symbol, just a circle with 2 dots inside. It looked like a face. His face. "I made this," he said, a little shy now, holding it out. "A while ago. Just messing around. Thought I'd clip it on my keys or something." I took it carefully. It was warm from his hand. "It's us, isn't it?" He looked at me like I just said something obvious. "Yeah." I slipped it into my pocket, fingers brushing the cord. "So, what does it mean?" He shrugged lightly. "That I'm not going anywhere. That this, whatever we're building, it matters." I swallowed past the ache in my throat. "And when we get back?" I asked after a pause. "What then?" "We figure it out," he said. "Together. You're not scared." "Oh, I'm terrified." He laughed softly. "But for the first time, it doesn't feel like a reason to run." I leaned into him, shoulder to shoulder, our bodies barely touching. Yet it felt like the most intimate thing we'd ever done. "We'll take it slow," he added. "Be smart. Careful. And honest. Always." He reached out, not asking permission this time, and took my hand. His fingers slid through mine like they'd always belonged there. It was such a small gesture, but my heart beat like it was trying to climb out of my chest. A couple passed by us on the trail, an older man and woman holding hands the same way we were. They smiled politely. If they noticed anything else, they didn't say. I caught Martin watching them. "Think that'll be us someday?" I teased gently. He glanced down at me. "If we're lucky." There was a quiet moment, not heavy, just full. Then he chuckled and said, "Although, you're going to be a terrible old man." "Excuse me." "You'll still be dramatic, insisting on philosophical monologues every time we see a tree. And you'll still be sarcastic and smug." He grinned. Perfect balance. I nudged him with my elbow and he squeezed my hand. On the way back down, we talked about the drive home, what to cook for dinner, whether we'd need to wash the tent or just let it air out in the sun. It all felt wonderfully normal. But underneath the small talk was a hum of something bigger. The knowledge that we'd turned a corner we couldn't unturn and neither of us wanted to. Later, back at the cabin, as the sky deepened and the first stars peeked through the trees, I caught him looking at me over the glow of the fire pit. His eyes were softer now, unguarded. "Come here," he murmured. I moved without hesitation, settling beside him as he opened his arms. He wrapped them around me like he'd done 1,000 times before, but this time I let myself melt into it fully. My head on his chest, his chin resting on my hair, the sound of crickets somewhere nearby, the warmth of him soaking through every part of me. "I don't know what this will look like," I whispered. "Neither do I," he said, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. "But I know I want it to be with you." We sat like that until the fire burned low. No more big confessions. No more fear. Just the quiet understanding that we'd found something fragile, complicated, maybe even risky. But real. And real things? They're worth everything.